Okay, the title of my talk today is Perspectives. Some of you recognize this slide, yes? So this is Cindy's house, Cindy Weinstock's house, which was burnt to the ground. But when she went back, and correct me if I'm wrong, Cindy, if I get this wrong, although I think I got it. When she went back to look at it and see if there's anything, this was left. A little Buddha that sat on a rock in the middle of the whole fire and didn't seem to get charred or touched by any of it. And when I saw that, when Stan put that on, did you send it to somehow I got it. Yeah, and I cried, but not tears of sadness. I was like a physical symbol in the world of all of this turmoil that says, I am untouched by any of it. Regardless of what's happening around me, I don't change who I am. I don't change my perspective based on what happens. The perspective that I have is mine, and you can't shake it. That's what I see in this little fella. And I love that he's got the head cocked like, really? I just love the whole look of this. It's just like everything about it just says life to me. Life, love, light, every attribute of God. So I have a question for you this morning, and it's this. Why do you see the world the way you see it? I want you to think about this. Why do you perceive the world the way you perceive it? Why do you react to the world the way you react? We don't all react the same, correct? We don't all see the world the same way. Even though they break us into groups of types of people, within that group, they still all see it individually, uniquely, in their own way. So my question to all of us is, why do we see the world the way we see it? Why do we have the perspective we have on life, on our careers, on our relationships, on money, on any of it? What has crafted your perspective of life? What is it? What has turned you into the person you are? And really, I guess, what have you allowed to turn you into this? What have you allowed in your life to turn your mind into the mind that perceives the way it does? Well, I can't answer that question for any of you. I can only answer it for myself. And I would like to say that one of the things that has created and crafted the perspective I have on life is Science of Mind. It is that 1927 book that I have read way too many times to count, and have gotten more and more from it as I continue to read it and understand it. But more than that, it's what these teachings have pointed me towards and where it has allowed me to grow and expand. So what was doing that inside of me? It's not just this man, it's not just this book, it's not just Emerson and Troward and all the shoulders we stand on, or even today's, Greg Braden or Joe Dispenza or Bruce Lipton, all these major minds today that are saying such fascinating, amazing things that they create an expansion in my mind. Does that affect my perspective of life? You bet it does. And it changes yours as well. We watch Karen Wright get up here and show that video, and suddenly my perspective changes. I'm suddenly saying, wait a minute, there's something happening in Uganda I'm not even aware of that would expand my perspective. Pay attention. And thank God for people like Karen and her videographer who brings it back to us and says, open up your minds, open up your hearts, open up your souls, open up your pocketbooks. Put your money where it's going to do something. So again, what is it that created you and the perspective you have on life? If you were standing on the precipice of something in your life, would you determine whether or not you would fall or fly, according to Craig's song? Let's just say every single one of us here is standing on the edge of a precipice like that little chicken. Chicken? Barnacle goose. I saw a chicken in my head. which is why I was so worried. So you're standing here on the precipice. You're on the edge. What is going to determine whether you fall or fly? It's not a done deal. It's not determined in advance by some God outside of ourselves saying, you know what, let's have that one fall, this one can fly. That's old, folks. That's an old understanding of God, and it is absolutely unusable today. Not if you want to take your life back. But something is going to determine whether or not you fall or fly. And something's even going to determine whether or not when you fall, you get up and walk. Or when you fall, you splat, and now you got to be reborn and do it all over again. So what is it? I mean, that's really an important question to ask. What is it that makes Philip Sherman who he is? What is it? What has happened in these last 40 years? I'm assuming you're somewhere around that age. You're welcome. These 40 years, right? That caused Philip Sherman to be the master designer he is today and have the life he has. And that's meant for every single one of you. Reverend Nancy, Karen Oxrider, Adam, every single one of you, Amy. What is it that brought you to the perspective you have on life? And is it serving you? There's the biggest question. Does it serve you? The losses you have had in your life. You know, I still think that when my mother passed away when I was only 19 years old, and I was so devastated by that, it has created a specific perspective to me that today, even today, when I go really far out of town, like if I go to Guatemala or something, there's a little part of me that really worries that someone's going to pass away while I'm gone. And I know that that perspective comes from that, from not being there when she passed away. So everything brings you to a understanding that causes you to create a perspective that you create your life from. So I'm asking you today, what got you to the perspective you're at? Steve Jobs said this: a lot of people in our world haven't had very diverse experiences. So they don't have enough dots to connect. And they wind up with very linear solutions without a broader perspective on the issue. The broader one's understanding of a human experience, and I would say the divine human experience, the broader one's understanding of a human divine experience, the better design we will have. So could it be that we just haven't seen enough dots to connect? Could it be that we just haven't spent enough spiritual time, we haven't spent enough spiritual practice to find all of these dots in a much broader experience and start connecting them together to create the design of our life that allows us to think from a much broader perspective than the me generation that just focuses on what's happening right here in my little hometown? Important question. So what designs your life? What's designing your life? Just another way of saying, how did you get to this perspective? What designs your life? What connects your dots? Do you have enough information to connect the dots from a place of expansive understanding? Or are we basically boxed in as this type of community that thinks this way? So in Craig's song, he says, morning curtain rises on the lines I must recite. Right at the top of this song, he's so sarcastic. Right at the top of the song, the morning rises on lines that I have to recite, as if there's something else leading me. There's something else going on, already prefabbed, that has me living what I'm living. I joined the coffee club. I go to Starbucks, where all smart people go to think, and I join them in line, and we're just all... Alfie just went, that's you, Kelly. Right? So there's this prefab understanding of how we live. We're all guilty of it, right? Morning curtain rises on the lines I must recite. Years spent memorizing every phrase. We've all done it. We have spent our lives memorizing how we're going to react in every given situation. based on the perspectives we have been told are the correct perspectives. He says, Technicolor dreams I have now fade to black and white. I lock my door and step out in the maze. Why do I hesitate? Believing it may be too late. I know that's a little bit paraphrased. I know I'll never know until I try. I'm standing on the brink. It's later than I like. I love that you said than I like to think. It's later than I like to think. I spread my wings and jump, fall or fly. So, what determines whether or not I'm going to fall or fly? Every single one of you sitting here today has something in your life that is asking you, are you going to fly with this or are you going to fall? And then if you back it up further, it's saying, if you fly, what will happen? And if you fall, what will happen? As if before we even take a step, like Kelly said during our talk, before you even take a step, you got to know how it's going to turn out or you won't bother trying. And that's a perspective that we have learned. Don't look silly, don't look foolish, don't fail. If you fail, you're weak. If you don't succeed the first time, there are others who have, you're less than. I was watching a PBS special on Lin-Manuel, and it was the special about when he wrote In the Heights, and watching him through this whole process. And I was sitting there, and Kevin and I were watching it together, and I turned to him and I went, I so wish that had been what happened to Dorian. You know, the project I had, we did a $3 million production of this, and most people expected it to open in Denver and go to Broadway. And we got amazing reviews, and we got some really horrendous reviews. I mean, one critic actually said, I really should think of a new career. On all planes. Because I had written the book, music, lyrics, directed it, and choreographed it, and co-produced it, because I like to do a lot. And I'm watching this PBS special, and I'm thinking to myself, did I create a perspective when that thing didn't go that stopped me? And I sat there, and tears came to my eyes because I acknowledged that I had. I let that perspective change me. Change my thrust. Now, by the way, I was already a minister by this point. I hadn't opened a church yet, but I had already started my ministry as a staff minister for Dr. Walker. And I was like, oh, now I got to go back to church, and everybody knows that the show failed and it didn't move on, and blah, 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 blah. When I look back and I see those things, and I think, did that change my perspective? And I'm watching Lin-Manuel, who had a number of flops before his big hit. I thought, apparently, nothing stopped him. He kept going. He just said, oh, I'll write another one. Oh, I'll write another one. And In the Heights was such a humongous hit for this guy. I mean, enormous hit. And what was his next show? Hamilton. So even when you think, oh my God, I'm the flavor of the month, does that change your perspective? Are you done then? Do you let it go to your head? Does ego, I can't even say it anymore, eliminating God, edging God out, because I only know ego as entertaining God only. So edging God out, does that suddenly take over? And so perspectives are really important things for us to get, understand, and figure out. Because I have to tell you, everything that was possible to me at the ripe old age of 20 when I moved to New York City is possible to me today at 64. And I will choose which things I am going to fly with. I just want to make sure that I'm choosing them from perspectives that are healthy and that support me. And that's what I want for every single person here. But first you have to be willing to ask the question, what has brought me to this perspective on my life? So I'd like to call it the divine perspective. What's the divine perspective? I know the relative perspective. I know the human, when I want to just say human in a negative way, which I never do, because I don't believe human is anything but divine. I never say the human experience or the divine experience, because it's a divine human experience. I am God. Every experience I have is a godly experience. I just get to choose which level of God I want to live at. Right? Everybody get that, right? Yeah. So, but if I were to separate it, to the human and say that human thing that makes so many mistakes, what perspectives have come along that I need to eliminate, that I need to get rid of? Because the divine perspective is all about our monthly theme of receptivity. Because if I can get my bloated nothingness, as Emerson says, I was going to say as Ernest says, as Emerson says, if I can get my bloated nothingness out of the way of those divine circuits, now I have the perspective of God as God. I have the divine perspective that is not limited by or impacted by anything that may have created the perspective I have right now that I'm creating more of. Because once you have a perspective, if your perspective is that this is a tough world, it's a tough world we live in, what do you think's going to show up? Every opportunity to prove that perspective. It's a tough world we live in. And you know what? After the last 2 weeks, I'm sure a number of perspectives have been built and etched in there. And we need to pull them out, release them, and stand in the divine truth that doesn't allow us to be fearful, doesn't allow us to be attached to anything we may have lost. Because in essence, you can't lose anything. You can lose things. You can lose houses. You can lose things. And I know that's very painful. But at the end of the day, if you're standing there, you've lost nothing. Because the very power and energy that created all of those things that you lost is right here ready to create them all over again. New ones. All the brush that has been burned. They're all gone into the ethers of the universe. But that which is underneath it, the divine trees and plants and bushes, they're just going to come right up underneath it. A year from now, we're going to be driving around seeing all the new growth. It's inevitable. But it's not inevitable individually, it's inevitable universally. Individually, you can ignore it all. You can stop your growth right here. You can take a perspective that this happened to me and I can't move on from it. Well, the universe will move on from it and it will continue to grow and evolve. It's up to you to gain a better perspective, a divine perspective. See, God is calling to tell us this. So, there's a man named Isaac Asimov. Anybody know who that is? You're all science fiction fans, apparently. Yeah, okay. He was one of the world's greatest science fiction writers. He actually, when he was alive, he was considered one of the 3 best science fiction writers of all time. He also, however, happens to be a renowned biochemist. He also got his doctorate from Columbia University in philosophy. Don't you love it when it's unknown caller? How many people answer unknown callers? I don't. So if you're unknown to me, you better get known to me. If you want me to pick up the phone. Kevin's always saying, when it goes unknown caller, he goes, you should get it. What if it's somebody we know? And I'm like, well, if it's someone I know, they'll leave a message, and then I will save that number with their name on it, and next time I'll answer. Make sense? That's a good perspective to have on unknown callers. Did you answer that? Whose phone was that? Did you answer it? Good girl. Okay, so here is what he wrote. Here's his quote. I love this quote. Your assumptions are the windows of the world. Scrub them off every once in a while, or the light won't come through. Your assumptions, we all know what an assumption does, right? When you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. So your assumptions are based on your perspectives. And these perspectives that we have, they're so ingrained that they have created these cloudy, dirty windows, and we think, we're taught to believe, we're somehow mesmerized and hypnotized into believing that's the view. That is not the view. That is your individual view because you haven't washed the frickin' windows. And to do that, you must get deep within and receive, be open to the receptivity of the divine coming through you. So much so that you don't allow all of these perspectives that may be your very own perspectives to do anything to you anymore. And this is the really big point of what I wanted to say today. Don't be so tied down. Don't be so proud of your perspectives. Don't be so ingrained and entrenched in your opinions being right. Because what if they're not? What if Ernest Holmes wasn't right? What if the Catholic Church was right? I fear that one. But you know what? The Catholic Church taught all there is God. God is all there is. So they're right there, in my opinion. What if we took all of our opinions and just threw them aside, right, Audrey? Just dropped them all. You know, Audrey Larson, who is one of the most amazing practitioners I know, she is in ministerial now. And I just have to tell you, after the first class, I thought she'd quit. I did, and so did she. Because on her way out, she went, I got to think about this. And she walked out. And I went, you know what? Whatever she decides, she decides. In the second class, she had a very different feeling about it. And what I know is that her perspective on this is so expansive in the way she speaks that it doesn't take much, doesn't take very long for Audrey Larson to let those circuits come through, even when there's a dirty window in front of her. And I want to know that for every single one of you, because I know you all have some dirty windows somewhere. Because I do. And if I do, you do. Because I'm perfect, and if you're not. So, but we do. How many people here have dirty windows? Okay, so how many people would like to wash them off? Right, that's what we get to do this month. We get to open up the floodgates, push away all these assumptions and beliefs and things we think we know, and let the sun come shining through. It's as though what we've just gone through was really a reflection of our own souls burning off all that needed to be burned off, and then the sky of ashen suddenly evaporates into the light of day that says to me, says to you, says to every single person, there is something inside of you that knows the truth, is not bound by anything that has happened in the past, does not wait for the future, but knows everything that you need to know to create the most vibrant life of health, the most expansive, creative life of opportunity, for relationships to just be buoying you up and holding you in such an expansive state of love that your life transcends anything it could be looking at right now through that cloud. So I suggest we get out into the sun, we get rid of our bloated nothingness, and allow the perspective, the divine perspective, to guide us, to lead us, to inform us, to show us exactly who we are, and live our lives from that perspective. Namaste. Thank you.